What if I told you that the United States is quietly preparing for another major military confrontation in the Middle East? Would you believe it? US President Donald Trump has confirmed that a large armada of American warships is moving toward Iran, in his words, just in case. The statement comes at a time of growing global concern, as Iran has been facing weeks of anti-government protests. According to U.S. defense officials, the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, along with its escort ships, was positioned in the Indian Ocean as of Friday morning. This movement is not being viewed as routine. Instead, analysts see it as a calculated signal. For nearly a month, Iran has been rocked by widespread protests against the government. Human rights organizations say those demonstrations were met with extreme force. One US-based organization estimates that more than 4,000 protesters have already been killed and warns that the number is likely to rise. Just days earlier, President Trump appeared to soften his tone toward Tehran, saying he had heard from reliable sources that the killings had stopped and that planned executions of detained protesters were being halted. But the sudden deployment of US naval forces now suggests a very different posture. Military action, analysts say, is never fully off the table when it comes to President Trump. There is growing discussion among security experts that the president may be buying time, quietly positioning military assets before making any decisive move. The reality is this: President Trump is widely seen as unpredictable when it comes to the use of force. While no one can say with certainty what comes next, one thing is clear. By this weekend, the United States will have a significantly larger military footprint in the region. That presence could serve as a deterrent, warning Iran against any retaliation, while also protecting American troops and allies already stationed across the Middle East. In other words, the possibility of escalation remains very real. At the same time, the United States is engaged in high-level talks with representatives from Russia and Ukraine aimed at finding a pathway to end Russia's invasion. This meeting is historic. It marks the first known trilateral discussion involving the United States, Ukraine, and Russia since the war began nearly 4 years ago. But despite its significance, analysts remain cautious. The core issue remains territory. Russia continues to insist on holding the Donbas region and other occupied areas, while Ukraine maintains that those territories rightfully belong to them under international law. The critical question is whether Moscow is willing to make real concessions. If Russia remains focused solely on maintaining control over occupied land, experts warn that these talks, held in the United Arab Emirates, are unlikely to deliver meaningful results. Meanwhile, President Trump has returned to the United States following a tense meeting with world leaders in Davos. Once again, his repeated demands to acquire Greenland dominated discussions. While there is now talk of a possible framework for negotiations, the broader impact may already be unfolding. Behind closed doors, European leaders reportedly expressed serious concerns about whether the United States can still be trusted as a reliable ally. There is growing anxiety that NATO members, including Canada and several European countries, may begin balancing against the United States rather than standing with it against common adversaries. Such a shift could fundamentally reshape global alliances. For decades, the transatlantic relationship between the United States and Europe has been a cornerstone of global security. Today, that relationship is under visible strain. And while attention remains focused on Iran, Ukraine, and Greenland, analysts warn that the long-term consequences of these tensions could be felt for generations. The question now is not only where American warships are headed, but where U.S. leadership itself is heading on the global stage. As military assets move, negotiations stall, and alliances begin to fracture, one thing is clear: the world is watching, and the stakes have rarely been higher.